The path to becoming a songwriter is not only complicated at times, but it's about as crooked a path as you could wonder. First of all, I think it's important to note that being a songwriter, or saying that you're a songwriter, is, as far as I can tell, virtually the same as saying that you're an actor. As soon as you say you are, as soon as you make the commitment, you are. Of course, that's not the same as saying you're either a good songwriter or a successful songwriter. But I think it does start, as almost all the creative arts do, with the leap of faith that you are. And it's not for the faint of heart. I frequently say when I'm asked to talk about this that unless you feel the need to do this someplace deep within yourself, don't do it. It's way too difficult to do unless you really get up every day and say, this is what I need to do. If you're going to do this because you need to, then you can't worry that you're not as successful as you once were unless what you're saying to yourself is you're not as good as you once were, or unless you're saying to yourself you're not as inspired as you once were. That's really more important than being good in my book. So the question of the path to being a successful songwriter. First of all, the good news and the bad news are in the same package. There is no simple way to do it. There is no tried and true way to do it. Are there certain signposts along the way you could give a shot to? Yeah, sure. You can, if you're interested in being a commercial writer, you can study how people are writing. That said, having taught songwriting, I don't think it can be taught. And so I would discourage anybody from thinking that merely by studying they can figure it out. You got to connect with something original within yourself.
Publishing, I mean, first advice that, because people call me all the time, my son or, young daughter wants to get into music, and the first thing I tell them is to write. Because the way that things are going with the music business, and it's always been this way, but it's even more important now, the writers are the ones that are going to be able to possibly make a living in the long run. If you're a player of music, which is an admirable, great thing, and not a writer, you're going to get paid to play if you're good. But 25 years from now, you're not going to make any money. If you're a writer and you have a song that does well, now 25 years from now, it could have it could be reborn and it could get played again, or somebody could re-record it, or somebody could put it in a movie, and there you are. You could be an old person and you're still making money off your music. So I think publishing it's really important for musicians now to really take writing very seriously if you really want to try to have a career.
I think the first thing that you have to have in your hands is a good stuff and a lot of stuff too. Like, let's say you have an album with 10 songs. Okay, you say, I want to find a publishing company. 10 songs depends. You got 3 good songs in 10 songs, good, but if you have just one, it's kind of difficult that some company can sign you for that. In my case, I got 6 albums already. And every single album is like 12 songs, so it's more than 50 songs that they have like a catalog, like a catalog? Yeah. And it's like that. You say, okay, I got this, is like dance music. This third song is like more like a salsa hip hop. This is a reggae dancehall in Spanish. This is a very hardcore rap. Oh, this is, that's basically what you need to have. You need to have different stuff. You want to see when you have like 20 or 30 songs, let's say like that, in 2-3 years, it's better for you to now start shopping around with a publishing company. It's so easier. You say, okay, man, this guy have 30 songs. They have about 25 songs. And 25 songs, he have like 10 good songs. Probably we can shop around with these 10 songs and put in, let's say, Sex and the City, CSI, The Shield, Resurrection Boulevard, or the new movie called La Venganza del Indio Malo. I don't know. And then they like, you have the lyrics to say, Del Indio Malo, I got a song already. It's perfect. So it's all depends, I think it's part of lucky, part of how you shopping around your stuff. You have to follow the people, follow every single event, and everybody see your face and got your card in your pocket all the time. And then CDs all the time. Oh, I have no CDs. Oh, I got it in my car. I don't have to carry my CDs all the time, but my car is just like a half block from the place where is the party. So I just go like this. Hey man, take my CD. Who knows? I don't know how many CDs I give. I probably give free CDs more than I sold. But everybody got my CD. It's cool, man. So, and I think this is very important, dude. It's an investment. Give all the time.
The kind of music that I make is this album especially was very personal. I think most artists pretty much try to draw from a personal place in the kind of music that they make, and whether it's musically, lyrically, you know, whatever the case. But for me, it was kind of both styles. You know, I try to make high energy music that people can relate to, not only lyrically but also musically. You know, I definitely believe in the ear candy concept, and you know, I think it's really important and something that I gravitate to. So I tried to make an album that I would want to listen to, something that you know, I tried to look back in my bank of music that you know, made me a fan, and try to kind of dissect it and go, okay, what was it about this that made me want to listen to this? So how can I incorporate that into my music? And that's kind of how, you know, we worked on this album. I think a way to make music relatable to your fans, to your audience, is trying to, you know, bring a string of familiarity. Maybe whether it's a certain sound or a certain lick slightly changed. I mean, you know, music is such a broad spectrum, and so much of it is borrowed, shared, you know, elaborated. And I think if you were to listen to, whether it be country radio or pop radio, there's so many times that you'll hear a song that winds up being a huge hit in today that has something that completely pulls you and reminds you of a song that you'd heard before, which makes you like that song even more. And, you know, I think there's something to that, you know, not to steal, not to, I mean, you definitely have to create your own uniqueness, and, you know, but it happens. It happens in our industry, and it happens in rock and pop. I mean, for instance, Rihanna, the current single SOS, you know, borrowed or not really, I mean, it's borrowed because I'm sure they pay for it, but basically it's the exact same, you know, hook of a song that was done in the 80s. That was a big hit. And, you know, it's hooky as crap, and you just wind up, you know, you think of both songs and you love it, and the people that maybe hadn't heard it, that are younger, all of a sudden are introduced into something new on an older scale as well, which is kind of neat. Relatability in lyrics for me really is just about, I mean, I think everyone shares similar experiences, and the best way to learn about that is to hear someone tell a story of something they've been through, and so that you can say to yourself, wow, I'm not the only one. And that to me is relatability. That to me is a key component in, you know, a song that really becomes a major success, is something that is, you know, hits your heartstrings, that chord of truth. And country music especially hits that, you know, chord of truth, because it's incredibly real and honest, and it's very deep.
I've oftentimes said that I have a piano upstairs that's got 3 or 4 really good songs in it, this piano I own. I just have to go out there and hit on the keys, you know, long enough till one falls out. And I don't know any other way. Once again, it gets back to hard work. You have to sit there and put in the time. And songwriting to me, I'm a music guy first. Once in a while I'll have a phrase that pops into my head that I try to put to music, but essentially I write music ahead of lyric. And when I'm doing it, I think, because after all these years of doing it, I'm pretty good at it. I can do it. But the secret to it is to know when you've done something special. Because you want a song? tomorrow you need a song from me, I'll write you a song. It'll sound like a song, and it will be a song. And you'll go, hey, that's not so bad. But you have to be able to sit there and know when you're doing something special and be able to get your arms around it, grab onto it, hold onto it, and realize it. And more importantly, you have to know when you're doing mediocrity, because you're going to do a lot of it. And you can't fool yourself that your mediocrities are brilliant, because they're not. And I oftentimes say, at least for me, if I have to worry about somebody else's opinion about what I've done, I haven't done very much. That doesn't mean that we're not still desperate for validation of what we've done and approval of it, because we are. We want that. But you must be honest with yourself. If you're not, you're headed for disappointment. You have to be able to say, that's not really that good. It's okay. Suddenly there it is. And you don't know why. That's why I said before, you have to sit in front of the damn piano and wait for it to pop out of there, because I'm sorry. I know somebody, I've heard some people say, oh, I woke up and I had this song and I wrote it in 10 minutes. I went, lucky bastard. You know, I've written small, really good parts of songs quickly, of which I've elaborated on, but never have I, woke up and fully visualized a thing. These people are apparently smarter than me. For me, it's sitting there and, going through the process, writing and rewriting.
My favorite part is songwriting, because that is where everything starts. The guitar part doesn't mean much unless it's on a great song, and what you're singing about really doesn't mean much unless it's on a great song. And I really admire some of the newer artists and the rap singers and all that kind of stuff, because they've really helped keep at least my catalog alive. A lot of people now have decided, well, we don't want to learn how to play, we don't want to write. Fine, don't. Use my songs. Just put your lyrics on them, and everything will be fine. So it's actually really made the catalog last a whole lot longer than anyone had expected, But I think, for me, just creating something from scratch that didn't exist before and hearing it come back is probably the happiest times in my life.
It tends to happen all at once, and if anything, I'd say the words come first. And people might be surprised, because my background is in music, and I've really only been a songwriter for, maybe a quarter of the time that I've been a musician overall, or not even that. But the words are so important. I almost feel like it would be easier for me to set a poem. If somebody just gave me a poem and said, hey, can you put some music to this? That's easier for me than to start with an instrumental piece and try and write lyrics to it. That, to me, is tricky business. I think the words have to... It's hard to do that without making it sound forced, whereas I feel like if a poem makes sense as a poem, then there's already lyric currents in it, whether the poet thought about it that way or not. Whereas music doesn't automatically have lyrical currents. If you listen to Chopin preludes or something like that, I wouldn't want to write words to them. They just exist as music,
I have some distinct opinions on the whole songwriting thing, and I compose music mainly, so my job is to try to write just music and then demo it out and have a fully produced track to entice someone that is an artist and maybe has a record deal, or somebody that's a great... it's kind of a backwards way of writing, because a pure writer will write music and lyrics at the same time. But I'm not gifted at lyrics, so I don't really try for it. To increase my chances of success, I'll put it that way, my theory about writing music is that if there's no vocal, the song from the standpoint of chord progression, key changes between sections, hook parts, and production, if you just have the music track, it should hold your attention top to bottom as a completed song. then let's say if someone does an equally good co-write on a track like that, then it's going to appeal to all listeners, not just somebody that just hears lyrics. Because some people don't hear. I don't hear lyrics. When I was a kid, I would only hear like the guitars, drums, and bass, on a rock thing or whatever. You've got it all covered, and your chances of that song being a single, I would think, and making money hopefully, is greatly increased. And so that's my belief for composing music, that it's got to be satisfying without anything on it. As far as songwriting, I'm convinced that most people are in total denial about their songwriting, because they'll think it's great. Their friends and family, whether they like it or not, will be trying to be encouraging, so tell them it's great. So I tell people the only thing that works for me, both as a player and as a writer, is I have to continually question myself and be critical of my abilities, just under the point of self-destruction, to have any chance of growing or doing something that somebody else wants to listen to. And that works for me, because the minute you say like, "Wow, that's really great," I think that it's like you're going down Larry Ball, because you're like, drinking your own bathwater, I call that. The test for a song would be, let's say, pick your favorite artist. Let's say you happen to like, The Fray or Sting or whatever. And my test for my song, if I was someone, let's say, that liked The Fray, I say, get your favorite song by The Fray, play it, then right after that, play your song after your favorite Fray song, and see how it holds up. And that'll give you a good idea if you're fooling yourself and you're in denial. And the great song, like I said about the band that got this unlimited high budget because their songs are so good, the great song and good songwriting and great songwriting are the only basically equalizing factor or that you have against the pitfalls of the music business. Because if you're sitting on like four songs that are radio single hits in some genre, they're still radio single hits, just nobody's heard them yet. So if you get in a position where you've networked yourself and someone in a position of importance can help you, you've got the goods to move you to like overnight success. 1 minute you're flipping burgers, next thing you've got songs on the radio and you're making money. If you don't strive to have the great songs, and you're just about, well, I need to record something and da-da-da-da, you're putting the cart before the horse. You have to have the great songs where you can just play on sing it with a guitar or play it on a keyboard, and everybody says, well, that song is just flipping amazing. If most people did a study on the odds of success in the music business, nobody would do it, because it's kind of, I'm not sure if the odds are like becoming somebody in the NBA, of all the kids that play basketball to end up in the NBA or end up in the major leagues, but the odds are not with you. So the only chance you do have is to have, even if you're a player, you have to, I think it's advantageous to put writing in a really important place in your life, because at some point you may have the opportunity to be able to use that song. And if you have no songs, you've got bad songs, it's not going to do anything for you. But if you have like 3 or 4 great songs, and the right person or the right band records them, it's the only chance really you have of beating the odds of the music business.
Well, now it's sort of a network. But going back to when I first came back to New Orleans and was trying to figure out, as a composer, how do you make a living? Because it's only recently that schools are dealing with the issues of what are you going to do with yourself when you get out of school if you choose not to just stay in and move on to teaching or performing, I guess, if you're one of the lucky few to get into your field performing. And I remember what I did was blindly as a kid, man, I just wrote some little bit of music, because MIDI was just coming out. This is '84, so you didn't really have the whole kind of setup you could do now and lock everything. We used to use those Roland drum machine pulse tones to lock up, and it was pretty, and it certainly was difficult. And I just went around and hustled some ad agencies, just knocked on a door, got into a meeting, and said, look, I'd like to write some music. Didn't really know what I was doing, and in terms of talking to them, I didn't even know how to speak to them. You know, I'd never tried to sell what I could do. And I remember I got 4 commercials for Mississippi Power. Buddy of mine, Kenny Morrison, was shooting them, so that felt good. I knew that guy. And I remember, though, they paid me $500 a spot. It was $2,000, and I thought I was in heaven, because I was like, there's a new computer, you know, I'm just thinking about what I can do with the money to kind of do what I want to do. And I remember I called Kenny and said, look, man, I've done some demos, but I'd like to play them for you before I play them for them. And so he met me, you know, it's like a drug deal, man. Our cars pull up in a parking lot. I get out, hop in his car, the old days of cassette tapes, you know, and I said, he listens to it and he goes, man, what are they paying you for this? I played him one spot. I said, well, they're paying me $500 a spot. So I said, it's $2,000 for the gig. He said, well, I would have paid you $2,000 for this one. I said, oh, okay. And so the next one, you know, so you just learn little bit by little bit how to price yourself, how to go in there, and as you started doing, of course, if you did it well, and you knew how to talk to people and be told, we want golden music that makes us feel like we're XYZ, and you know, and how do you translate that into music? It became pretty. It started rolling, you know, and I got very fortunate. And it was at a time in New Orleans when literally nobody was doing it. So I could basically scoop up all the low-end work. You know, they were paying 40 times that to out of town. I didn't know, but they were paying, you know, 20, 30 times that to people out of town. So I was getting the low-end work, but was thrilled with it. Then I figured out the game, I figured out the business and changed my approach.
With anything you want to do in life, you have to do it. I mean, that's what made jazz musicians great, is playing all the time. It's not reading books or studying. Once you get the fundamentals down, you have to play. And so it's the same thing if you want to be a film composer. You go to these schools that have people that have been successful in the business, and they train you, and they show you, they give you the basic skills. Now, if you're any good and you love what you're doing, you want to hook up with people that need that music. And in the beginning, you're going to be doing it for free. And you're going to be doing it on your keyboard, and maybe you play guitar, or maybe you play a wind instrument, or maybe you can get a couple of your pals together, or other fellow students, and go into the studio at midnight, and they'll let you go in and you record whatever you've written for the film. But that's what you have to do. I mean, you're just not going to, it's not good enough to graduate from a great university and you've learned all kinds of stuff about writing and then come out here and knock on doors. Because, first of all, you haven't built up any network at all, and you don't have the practice of doing that collaboration. Some people think that they'd love doing film composing, and they come out here and discover that it's not just the writing, it's dealing with the deranged director on the set who all of a sudden loved the demo but hates your music, and now what do? I mean, I've seen guys go, you know what? I thought I was going to be a composer, but I just have decided I'm going to be an orchestrator and arranger. I'm going to let somebody else deal with the crazies, and I'm just going to do that craft work here and let them handle all the crazy politics. So you have to learn those political skills as well. So I want to encourage people who not only love film music and are willing to work hard, but have to understand that in films, it's not about your music. It's about the film. You have to serve the film, and you have to be able to put your ego aside, and even though it's the most beautiful melody we've ever heard, if it doesn't fit in 33 seconds of this cue, it's not going to work. You're not going to be able to tell the director, let it continue playing into the next scene. So you have to be able to make those compromises, and that's hard for certain artists. So it takes a special person that can do that, but you need to be aware of that.
The hit song is always had that sort of formula of hook them in the beginning, set them up, you know, with a sort of a little tension, then release with the chorus line, you know. Then set them up again, little, you know, then the chorus line, payoff, you know. So hook them in, you know, get them interested, and then pay them off, and then hook them in again, pay them off. Well, now I've done that twice. I might get bored here, so let's put in a middle eight, you know, the bridge. Take it someplace else, refresh it. Then come back and remind them about the chorus and the verse in the chorus and finish. That works. Because it really deals with the human thing. 3 minutes, bang, verse, chorus, break, verse, chorus, done. Oh, let's play that again.
I would keep an open mind. Don't close off to saying, I don't like this kind of music. I hate that. I hate that. There's no sense being doctrinaire about music. People tend to be. Jazz people don't like rock and roll. There's rock and roll people like this. There's rock and roll, and then there's thing that isn't. For songwriters, find the ones you like and listen to it, you know, and be hard on yourself a little bit, but don't let the critic overwhelm the creative person in you to where you're just cutting everything off because that's no good, that's no good, that's no good. That doesn't happen that frequently. I mean, when people play me stuff, as a matter of fact, the worse they are, the more they write, you know. It's just one crappy thing after another. You got to be a little hard on yourself, but don't choke it, you know.
You have to get to a stage where you believe that your songs must be heard. That's true of Dylan and Cobain, and I mean all these guys and girls had the idea that their songs had to be heard, and it was that belief that sustained them through everything else. And if you don't have that, if you don't feel like, if you just feel like your songs are okay, keep working until you get to a point where you feel like, you know what, people need to hear this song. It's really, you know, and you may be wrong. You may be that it's not this song that they need to hear, but just that belief will sustain you through the inevitable very, very hard times. So getting to that belief that the song must be heard is the first step. Then there's some, frankly, legal aspects that go along with that. You get copyright just by they call it fixing a song in a tangible medium, writing it down, writing an original work down, or recording it. Just record it into a boombox, write down the chord progression, the lyrics, and you have the copyright. You have all of the rights associated with the copyright. And no one else can do anything with it without your approval. That said, there are other steps that you should take to protect that copyright. You should register with the Library of Congress, and you should affiliate with one of the 3 main performing rights organizations in the United States, if you're a U.S. songwriter. If you're rest of the world, your country will have similar organizations. Registering with the Library of Congress sets a very firm kind of date of creation. It gives you evidence that will hold up much more effectively if there are disputes. Someone says, no, I wrote that song. The fact that you registered with the Library of Congress will help you greatly. Affiliating with the PROs, and the PROs in a nutshell monitor public performance, music over the radio, broadcast on TV, those types of things, is another way for you to kind of officially demarcate that this song is yours, even if you're not getting radio play. It's still a good idea to do that. So all of those things have to be done for a song, and they should be done early on, and they should be just habitual. You should do this when you write a song. You register it, and, fill out the PRO forms. Additional things with the song, and again, this is kind of legal stuff, but if you don't take care of this stuff kind of early on, it can be a real problem. If you're in a band and there are multiple writers, you need to determine what fractional ownership of this, how the song breaks out. So if there are 4 people in a band, and you're like REM used to be, or whatever, REM used to just whack it up. Every song was, when they had 4 members, was just 25%. Jagger and Richards, 50-50. McCartney and Lennon, 50-50. And then if Ringo or George wrote a song, then those were their songs. It's really important to do that, because if you don't, if it's a joint creation, if 4 of you are sitting in a room making a song up, and you release that song, and you haven't stipulated who owns it, the drummer, who may very well have just come in and put a 4/4 beat over it, is as much a writer as the person who brought in the lyrics and the melody in the eyes of the law. So really important to have a kind of a document that stipulates the ownership, and it's touchy. It's not in, I mean, this is why lawyers are the only ones making a fortune out here, is because these are complicated things, and no one wants to deal with them. But I would be remiss if I didn't say you should. knowing that people will probably not pay as much attention to it as they should, but there's just so many horror stories about people who haven't. So if you can get into the habit, get it out early in your career, and just, this is how we do things, you'll be so much better off, and it'll help you with publishing and everything else. And that's another aspect of the song. Once you have this copyright, you have this kind of bundle of rights associated with it. So this song isn't necessarily just something that goes on an album. It's something that can be exploited onto TV and films, and more websites. More and more artists need to be thinking of these outlets. In order to think of these outlets for exploitation, you need to get your affairs in order. So that's why, I kind of start with a song, have that inspiration, have that belief that the music has to be heard, and then do the business side of it. And it's a metaphor in a way for the record industry. You got to have this creative element, but you then also have to have enough kind of sense about you to do the business element, and it's those that can combine the two that succeed.